Who's your emergency contact? Who should be notified in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I caught my case back in December 15th of 1998. They picked me up on a parole violation, and when they picked me up, they took me down to the station out here downtown Salt Lake City. So I'm in an interrogation room. Got two FBI agents trying to question me. One of the FBI agents' name was Special Agent Phelps, and they were asking me about a bank robbery, which of course I didn't know anything about, right? So they proceeded to read me my Miranda rights, and when it got to the point, you have the right to plead the fifth. I invoked my right to plead the fifth, and I wanted to contact my attorney. And they were like, all right, they left the room. They came back. They kept trying to talk to me. And I continued to tell them, hey, I'm not speaking to you unless I have my attorney. Matter of fact, just take me to jail. And they continue to just keep talking to me. Like they do not honor your Fifth Amendment. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you don't know what you're doing, and a lot of people don't, when they first encounter the feds, you hear the stories about, oh, you can plead the fifth and all the rest of it. But being in a room with FBI agents, just their presence and the fact that they arrested you and all the circumstances that surrounds the situation is very intimidating, But for me, like, I knew what was going on. I just got out of the feds 6 months prior, and so I continued to emphasize that I don't want to speak with them, that I wanted my attorney present if there was going to be any type of questioning. But they went on and continued to try to talk to me. They're like, oh, well, we'll just sit here and let's see if we can contact your attorney. All that one phone call and all that, it looks good in the movies, but it's bullshit. You don't get your phone call until you get to the county jail. When they arrest you, they're not sitting your ass down and be like, all right, you got somebody you want to call your attorney. Their job is to interrogate you and to try to get as much information as they can. Now, from the moment you get picked up, even before they read you your Miranda rights, everything that comes out of your mouth can and will be used in the court of law. You got some agents that act like they just want to have a conversation with you, like, oh yeah, this is off the record, like what are you doing, this and that, and so on and so forth. Then later on, you find out that some off-the-cuff comment that you made shows up in court. And I mentioned that because, they're asking me about some guns that were stolen. And I'm riding in the back of the SUV, and one of the agents was asking, like, hey man, this could be dangerous, man. You got all these guns out here on the streets. Like, what if one of your little brothers gets shot with one of these guns? And I was like, man, I don't know anything about no guns, and I don't give a fuck about that shit. So I said that to try to be like, I don't got nothing to do with this. I'm not trying to talk to you. But when I say I didn't give a fuck about that shit, when I went into the courtroom to try to get a bail hearing, they used that against me. They were like, oh, Mesa, he don't even care if his own brother gets shot by one of these guns that is out in the streets. And that's when I realized, like, anything you say from the moment you get arrested is going to be used against you. So but you do have the right not to speak to them. Because after I got indicted, when I went through the penitentiary. And like I mentioned, when I was in Florence, when the FBI's came, they called my name up to go to the lieutenant's office. And when I went up there, we went up to the visiting room. And when they called my name and I walked into the visiting room, I seen two FBI agents sitting in the room. Like they weren't dressed like FBI agent. You know, they were. One of them was in street clothes, another one was in their suits or whatever. But you could tell just by their aura that they were FBI agents. And I didn't go in the room. I stuck my hand at the door. I'm like, man, what's this about? So, oh, we just want to ask you some questions. I was like, nah, I ain't got nothing to talk about. And I refused, and I walked out of that room. You know, so so I tried to tell them that, hey, I'm not interested in having a conversation with you. I mean, for me personally, I knew I was hit. Because they're bringing up stuff that they would only know if somebody was telling on me. And of course, somebody was telling on me. So I told them, hey, I'm not interested in having this conversation. So when I finally you know, emphasized my point and just sat there with my mouth shut, the two FBI agents left the room. They left me sitting in the room for about an hour, by myself. I got shackles on my feet. I'm not handcuffed, but I got shackles on my feet. So I'm sitting at the desk, and when you're in there and you realize that everything just hit the fan and that you're probably in for a long stay. I knew I was in for a long stay, you know, but for me, the whole time I thought I was slick. I thought I was clever. And I was clever. I was slick. I got away with everything that I was doing out here, whether it was shooting or robberies and the rest of it. But the one thing I didn't account for was one of my own homies telling on me. And that's the thing with a lot of these dudes is out here running around right now. It's all fun and games. You guys are recording yourself on TikTok and Instagram, shooting firearms or doing whatever you're doing, you know, or you just have a crew of these kids that you grew up with and you think that all you guys gonna be solid. Man, at the end of the day, homie, there's only very few of us that stick to that code. That code of loyalty, the code of death before dishonor, whatever it is that we sign up to. The penitentiary, there's over 250,000, 300,000 inmates in the federal system right now. And I want to say 85% of them are there because one of their homeboys told on them. When you're sitting in the holding tank, when you're sitting in a cell, in an interrogation room, and the realization is hitting you all at once. Oh man, you're going down. You're gonna be down for 10, 20, a life sentence, depending on what you got picked up for. There's a lot of dudes that, yeah, it's fun and games while they were getting away with everything, while they were spending the money or hooking up with them girls out there and getting all the accolades and whatever it is, street cred that comes with it. But when they sitting in that fucking chair with two FBI agents in front of you talking about you're going to be doing 20, 30, 40 years, life sentences, a lot of them ain't going to be willing to do that. And a lot of them aren't doing that. I made a video a few videos back about beware of busters. And the reason I made those videos is because there's dudes out here, not just in my community, not just in Salt Lake, but all across the country that these youngsters look up to like they're big homies, like they're the OG. They've been in the streets. You see them serving all the time. You always hear the name that they doing this, doing that, but their bitch ass never been in jail. Or they go to jail and they get bailed back out a couple days later. We just had an incident over here that the marshals ran up on a dude. He had a U.S. Marshal warrant. Now, one of my homies got caught up in the situation too, but the warrant was for the dude. But the homie was in the car with him, so when the marshal came and swarmed them up, they took them both to jail. Now, if anybody's been in the feds, if anybody understands anything about the U.S. Marshals and having a U.S. Marshal warrant, when the marshals arrest you, they put what is called a U.S. Marshal hold. A U.S. Marshal hold means no matter what, you're not going nowhere until you go before the judge. You can't get bail. Nobody can come and bail you out. Nobody can make a phone call. It's a U.S. Marshal hold, and you are going to be locked up until you see the magistrate for a bail hearing. And that takes a minimum of anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks. When I got picked up on my violation, I had a U.S. Marshal hold on me. I couldn't bail out. When I got picked up for my sawed-off shotgun, I had a U.S. Marshal hold on me. I couldn't bail out. When I got picked up for the bank robbery, they put a U.S. Marshal hold on me. I could not bail out. So this dude, I'm just gonna leave his name out of out of the video for now. The marshals came for him, but he's out of jail the next day. But my homeboy is still in there fighting the case, right? I say that to emphasize that there's these dudes out here that's running around. Everybody know who the fuck they are. They see them all the time. They see them in the mix all the time, but they never go to jail. Everybody else around him goes to jail. You have family members that's been locked up. You know people have been locked up. You yourself been locked up. So you know, if you out there doing whatever you're doing and the marshals come or the feds come or the state come or whatever alphabet agency comes and arrests you, you know you're going to go away for a little bit, you know? So you have to be conscious of the fact that when the things that you know normally happens or routinely happens, action, reaction. If I drop a light bulb on this floor right here, when the light bulb hits the floor, it's going to shatter. No matter how many times I drop that light bulb on the floor, it's going to shatter. So if you drop a light bulb and it doesn't shatter, well, maybe you have to ask yourself why. And now you go look back and you see that the light bulb is not made of the same material as the other light bulb that gets dropped and shatters. But you got these dudes out here that got the lingo, got the swag, got the steps, the 2 steps and all that, sound like a gangster, act like a gangster, look like a gangster, but they ain't. And if you don't learn to recognize that shit, homie, you're gonna get yourself caught up. I know I got a little sidetracked on the video that I was doing today because I had intention of doing a video of an incident. I was in the county jail, but for some reason I just went left, right? Because for me, I just I get frustrated, right? Not frustrated at these busters, because a buster is a buster. You can't do nothing about them. That's what they are. That's who they are. That's how they're made up. But I get frustrated that these busters are the ones that are misleading these youngsters out here. That they got these youngsters looking up to them like they some type of G. Like out here in Utah, homie, I've been locked up with almost everybody who's anybody. And I know about everybody. You got dudes that run around here and act like they tough, but when I come into the room, they divert their eyes because I know the truth. I know what you are, you know. All that tough persona shit, I know in your heart you're a cold-blooded coward. And they know who they are, you know. But again, that wasn't my intention for this video. I'm just a little frustrated with the situations that's going on out here with some of my peoples and stuff. But that being said, let's get to the story that I was here to share with you, right? So, in the county jail in Old Metro, we got transferred from Old Metro to the new ADC. Now in Old Metro, it's a 14-man tank or a 16-man tank. There's no COs in the block. You got each floor. I was on level 2, and level 2 had C3, C6, C9, D3, D6, D9, and F and G or E. So all those blocks are all 14 or 16-man blocks, tanks. And in the hallway, you got one CO by the elevator. So on your floor, you'll never see the CO unless it's mail time and 10 o'clock count, or if your section has visits that day. Other than that, you're not going to see the CO. So being in a confined space like that with no cameras, no COs, you're on your own. As far as like you jump out there, somebody's gonna bust your head every single time. And a lot of dudes got fucked off in Old Metro. But in 2000, or then in 99, in 2000, we all got transferred to the new jail, ADC. Now ADC, the jail is the new one. Is like it's got a triangular pod, with a horseshoe with the CO in there, and then even has a tower in the unit. So we're always being watched. There's cameras and all that. So that being said, you got these dudes in the county jail now that might not have been able to survive in Old Metro, but are now walking around the block, puffing their chests out, and all the rest of it. Because, until push come to shove, most people don't want to get into a confrontation unless they're able to get away with it. Or they might not be so quick to bust you in your mouth over some dumb shit because there's a CO in the block watching it. But, for me, when I was there, I didn't care. It was the same shit. I treated it like I was still in Old Metro. You jump out there, that's what it is. So it was during basketball season. It was like almost going towards the playoffs. The Jazz was in the playoffs. Back then the Jazz was always in the playoffs, but they never really got nowhere. So there's a day room, there's a TV in a day room. There's only 2 TVs in the block. There's a day room and a TV room. So the TV room, they're watching the Jazz game, and it's crowded. Everybody, because everything they make, the rooms that they make it so it only holds a certain amount of people. So I try to go into the TV room to watch the Jazz game, but it was too many people in there already. So I come out and there was dudes out in the day room that was watching something. So I went over there and I asked. There's about 4 people watching TV. I don't know what they were watching. So I went over and I asked everybody, out of respect. I asked everybody. I said, "Hey, you guys mind if I turn this game into the Jazz game?" And every single one of them that was sitting around was like, "Nah, go ahead, man. Watch whatever you want." So and the TV's high, so I had to pull up a chair, step on the chair, and change it to the game. So after I change it to the game, I come back down, pull my chair up, sat down to watch it. And now as I'm watching it, there's more people that's coming to watch the game too. So there's about maybe 10 of us now watching the Jazz game. TV room was full of people watching the Jazz game. Back then we didn't have any of the major sports outside the Utah Jazz. So the Utah Jazz is a big deal out here in Utah. So I'm watching the game, and here comes this white dude, older dude. I was in my early 20s. I was like 21, 22 at the time. So this dude, I would say he was probably in his 30s. He was tall and slim. He goes up there without saying anything to anybody, pulls the chair up, gets on the chair, and changes the TV channel. So I'm like, but nobody around, I'm like, what the fuck, right? But I'm waiting for somebody to say something, but nobody's sitting there. There's 10 of us sitting there. Nobody there is saying anything. So I go up to dude. I'm like, hey, excuse me. Like, all of us sitting down here. You seen all of us sitting down here. We're all watching that game. Oh, they're watching the game in the TV room. You guys can go over there and watch the game in the TV room. I'm like, nah, we watching it right here. We was watching it before you got here, homie. Like, nah, you guys can go over there and watch the game in the TV room. I was like, all right, whatever. So I walked past him, grabbed a chair, put the chair back, step on the chair, and turn the TV back to the game. So as soon as I get down, grab my chair to go sit down, this motherfucker comes back, gets up there, and changes the TV back. So right behind me is the horseshoe where the CO is, right? So the CO is standing there, he's sitting there in the horseshoe on his computer. So I turn around, I see the CO, and I want to bust this dude in his mouth, but the CO is right there, right? So I go up to her and say, hey man, let me go holler at you in the room, right? He's like, nah, you can holler at me right here. He's getting all loud now. His voice raised, the volume of his voice went up. And I can see him because the CO is behind me. I can see him looking at the CO while he's raising his voice at me. And I'm just like, because I'm always I've gotten myself in plenty of confrontation, and I know if I bust this dude, I'm gonna end up in the shoe for 2 or 3 months. It's just the way it goes, right? So I'm trying to tell this dude, I say, hey man, let me holler at you in my room. Really, it didn't make a difference if I beat him up out in the day room or in the room. But in the room, maybe I have a longer, more time to stomp his bitch ass out, right? That was my thinking. Because if I do something right here, it's just gonna get broken up, and ain't nothing gonna really come of it. I, I'm thinking I'm not gonna be able to get my point across, or have time to get my point across. So I'm telling him, hey man, let's go in the room. Let me holler at you in the room. He's like, nah, you can holler at me right here. And he starts poking me in my chest. So you can holler at me right here. What you want to do? You can holler at me right here. And just kept poking me in my chest, right? So the CO, he's still on the computer because the TV is in the corner of the unit, and in the ADC, all the cells are all windowed. So I can see the reflection of the CO behind me sitting down. And he's not paying any attention to it because, the unit's kind of loud because the guys in the TV room, they're cheering for the Jazz and people's in conversation and stuff. So when I'm looking, I don't see the CO noticing me and dude standing there, and the dude keeps poking me in my chest while he's talking. So I look, say, fuck it, right? So I ask him one more time. I say, hey man, let me go holler at you in my room. Again, he sticks his hand out to poke me in my chest, but this time I'm anticipating it. I'm ready. So when he sticks his hands out, I take my left hand and I push it up. I slip it up and I step into him. So now his hand is across my my right shoulder. So I push his hand up, slip under him, grab him by his neck, and just push with my legs and clipped his leg and just slammed him. Bam! On the back of his head to the ground. And after that, I just started stomping him out. You know, the CO ran out when they seen that, and I got a few stomp in. The CO came down. He's not trying to tackle me because he's by himself, and I've already have built up a reputation of fighting and all the rest of it in the county jail. So he's like, hey, stop, trying to spray me. But I just, put my hand up so the mace don't hit in my eye, and I'm going to work. And it's just bing, 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 right? Anyway, so he calls for backup, and I can see all the other COs running in. So when they run in, I just step off of him, walk into my cell, pack up my property, let them cuff me up, and take me to the SHU. But I share this story because it's almost in correlation with all my venting earlier. It's like you got these dudes that pretend that there's something. Like this dude right here that changed the channel on me. He was pretending to be tough. He was pretending that he was somebody that could run something because when he looked over my shoulder, he saw there was a CO there. So he was emboldened by the presence of the guard, because if the guard wasn't there in that room, we would have never had this confrontation. He would have been respectful because he knew somebody's going to bust his fucking head. But knowing that the guard is sitting right in the unit right behind us, he felt that the guard was going to protect him. And I say that to the point like these busters out here that's running around, yeah, maybe you are protected by the feds. Maybe you are protected by the cops out here that keep letting you back out so you can trap people off. But eventually, you're going to run into somebody that's real, that don't give a fuck and don't like what you are. And when you do, it don't matter who's looking. It don't matter who's around. They didn't give it to you. And again, to all these dudes, you know who all these busters are that's running around here acting like they some type of dude. But you hang around with them. And I know some of them's your cousin. And I know some of them you grew up with. But that's fine. If you don't want to do nothing to these dudes, and if they're your cousin, they're your childhood friend, that's cool. I'm not telling you can't hang out with them. I'm not telling you can't have picnics with them and do whatever the fuck else you want to do. But if that's what you're doing, don't come at me. Don't ever come around me and talk about you some type of motherfucking gangster. You know what I mean? Because to me, in my eyes, if you hang around busters, that makes you a buster. If you're sitting there eating with a fucking rat, that makes you a rat. And that's not just how I feel. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it is. So, like I said, man, you can be whatever you want to be out here. But just don't come talking that gangster shit to me, because I know better. Welcome to the USP.